probably made it pretty clear by this point that I'm rather an odd duck. I find myself to be different than a lot of the humanity that is around me, and there are certain ways that humanity even sort of mystifies me at times. One example of that is something that I refer to as social grouping. I really don't. That's sort of a intermediate phrase. At some point I might find some better solution to that, but it was what I could come up with as a name for it because I'd really never heard anybody talk about it as such before. And I'm sure there are actually official names. I don't know what they are at this moment in time, but I want to talk today on the subject of social grouping on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Tuesday, the 15th of March of 2022. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That's the Kurt's Religion and Politics page on Facebook, on Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com, on minds.com. That would be the Kurt's Religion and Politics group, primarily on Minds, on Parler, on Gab, and also probably on Twitter, and maybe some other places that you might be able to find me. And again, we're going to discuss this idea of social grouping. Let me go ahead and get into my notes, and this hopefully will give you some idea sort of what I'm talking about. Am I the only one who notices if I park my car in front of a restaurant with nobody in the parking lot, in a relatively short time, the place will not just be moderately full, but the vehicle I left out in the, quote, North 40, for those who don't get the idea, interpret the expression as out away from everyone, will be more or less surrounded by others? Am I the only one who finds that to be true? How about this? When I sit myself in said restaurant, you can bet out of the next 5 or 10 groups of people coming in, they will surround me even if I intentionally sat down in an area that shows I'm seeking to be, quote, away from the pack, end of quote. Then there's that tendency for folks in the grocery store to all but magnetically be pulled toward the part of the store in which I, often momentarily, find myself. And what's even more interesting, they seem to instinctively know where I'll want to go and park in the aisles I most want to visit, often in front of the very thing that I'm trying to look at. By now, it must seem like I'm paranoid, right? But let me just give you a couple of issues that are against the assertion of my paranoia. To begin with, though the behaviors are annoying to me a lot of the time, that's the sum total of my give-a-care as far as they're concerned. The second thing I would say is I'm pretty sure most, if not all, of the folks in question don't recognize or realize what they're doing. They know they're shopping or eating or parking, whatever it happens to be. The patterns to which they seem to adhere, though, seem to be subconscious. They honestly don't realize they're doing what they are, as far as I can tell. I've heard people intimate this way of doing things is why cities and various such groups come into existence. I guess that's part of the reason I find it annoying that folks do such things. After all, most of the time, I'd much rather be a private person alone with those about whom I most care, these days mostly just my son and a few others. That said, I really believe it's a subconscious set of normal reactions for most folks. It may be instinctive. I'm a little bit loath to consider the idea of instinctiveness, but I do believe it sort of happens. The more I think about it, the harder it is for me to be terribly upset. That said, I'm not sure why the difference between me and so many others. I don't think I'm alone in my position, just in the serious minority. I know people like myself. Most, though, are just not that way, just not like me and the people like me. Tim Pool made an interesting point. For him and those around him, it was pretty much no problem to move out into more or less a rural area. He didn't really have a problem with that. Others would struggle if they tried to do that. For me, the only obstacle is I want things convenient, not people, except how they relate to the things I want or need. For others, social grouping seems to be the norm. Where are you on that spectrum? Okay, so done with my notes. Again, you might hear what I have to say and think to yourself, dude's paranoid. But there's a problem with that. And it's a really simple problem. I don't think anybody is, quote, out to get me. And I don't think most of the people who are doing the things that they're doing are doing them on purpose. I don't think they're thinking to themselves, we're going to inch in ever closer to Kurt. I don't think they're doing that. I don't think they think about where they're parking in the parking lot. It's hilarious how it works. It's like they park in a given area either because they think I know something they don't, or because there's a car parked there and they think that's as good a place as any to park a car. Or maybe, like I say, maybe they don't even think about it. Maybe it's all but instinctive as far as that goes. I don't know. I can't even say. But I just think it's kind of funny. And again, I could move myself out into the boondocks, right? I could move myself into a place where people wouldn't be around me most of the time. But look, I see people driving up and down the piece of road that I live on. And let me just give you an idea. In my little neck of the woods, in my little neighborhood, there are no more than 5 blocks that people can drive on my road. It's from 14th Street to 17th Street. Okay? And you can't get past 17th, and the streets are numbered exactly like you would expect. You can't go past, you can go a little bit past 12th or 14th, but you can't get to 13th, and you can't get down to 18th. This is literally what we're talking about. 4 blocks, basically. Yet people are constantly driving down my road. Now, there's a sort of a excuse for a lot of people. There's a school at the end of the road, and people like to use that road to get to the school. Okay, got that. That means 2 times a day for probably half an hour at a time, there ought to be people on that road. And I'm cool with that. That makes sense to me. What I find amazing is how many people drive onto a street, 16th, which is a T. You have to stop. And you can either turn left or right onto the street where I live, and I'm not going to go into detail on that. The other streets are pretty nondescript in their names. This one is a little more descript, and knowing the cross street, you could probably find me pretty easily. Not that I care so much, but my point here is simply to say this. Why do people, knowing that they're going to have to stop at least once on 16th, when they could go down to 15th and go straight through, sail straight through, why do they tee onto my street from 16th Street and go left or right instead? This is another part of this same sort of grouping or tendency towards similar activities thing. I don't really get it. I don't get it. And again, I don't care for it. I find it a little annoying, but the truth of the matter is, does it hurt me really? Is it really that big a deal to me? No, it's just something that makes me scratch my head. And I think that there is a tendency, like people in cities, for people to gather together. And this is why when I go into a restaurant, people will sit next to me on either side. In the booths or on the tables on either side of me, and I couldn't tell you really why they do it. And I'm not sure that they could tell you. If I stopped a person and I said, hey, I have a question for you. Why did you decide the booth right next to mine was a good place to be? I'm not mad. I'm just curious. What is it that makes you think that that's the thing to do? And again, does it hurt anything? No. Is it annoying? Yeah, it's a little annoying to me because I like to be out on my own a lot of times. But all of that said, I really do find that this is a kind of amazing thing. And I think that this must be some part of how humans have survived for so long. I don't really understand why or how that works, but I think that must be that way. I'd love to hear other people's opinions on this because, quite frankly, I can't come up with anything else myself that would make this make any kind of sense for me. So if you have some idea why it is that people tend to do that, maybe you can explain. Maybe you've thought about it. Maybe you've considered it. Maybe you do it and you have good reason for it. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to know. I'd love to find out why, quote, social grouping. And like I say, there's probably a better name. If you know the name, I wouldn't mind knowing that as well. But I'd love to know why that social grouping is so very important to a lot of people, whether it's subconscious or unconscious or how that works. I don't know. But anyway, I'd love to know why that's the case. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap things up. This has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Tuesday, the 15th of March of 2022. That means tomorrow will be Wednesday, that middle of the week, work week day for most folks. The 16th of March of 2022. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That's the Kurt's Religion and Politics page on Facebook, on kurtzreligionandpolitics.locals.com, on Minds, minds.com, and that would be the Kurt's Religion and Politics group, primarily there, on Parler, on Gab, on Twitter, wherever else you happen to be finding me today. Remember that you can leave feedback of various kinds, like, dislike, Rumble on Rumble if you choose to do that. That's that boxing glove on the app. So you can leave feedback of various kinds, and there's certain that allow a lot. I think it was CloudHub that allows multiple different kinds of feedback, and that's cool, I guess. You can also comment on whatever I put out there, obviously, and I would appreciate it if you, particularly if you do constructive comments. I will do my best to look at what you say, and if I think that it's reasonable, I will attempt to reply to whatever comment you put on my content. If you do a comment that is either advertisement that has nothing to do with me or that I believe is going to be harmful to others, I am very, very likely to delete it if I happen to find it before the platform I'm on deletes it, if they do that automatically. So keep that in mind. Today we've talked on the subject of social grouping, and tomorrow we're going to talk on the idea of young children. And there's something that really mystifies me about a thing that I've seen more and more occurring in the modern day, and I really want to kind of get into that on tomorrow when I talk on, on my next little thing that I'm talking on. Like I say, I called it young children, and hopefully you'll get an idea why that is when you check out my content. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going for you as well as it possibly can be. Hope this year is being a good year for you up to this point, and hope that I will see you again on Wednesday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This podcast was created on Tuesday, the 15th of March of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that, and you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.